One thing that I really enjoy about gaming is that there are always new discoveries to be made, both for new games coming out and for old series being rediscovered. That experience is very personal as well, as for instance I discovered the Trail series very early on in my RPG playing time, while others are only now getting into it with the recent Sky remakes. So I'm saying that because everyone's timeline is very different when it comes to discovering and getting into series. As someone who has been a tactical RPG fan from day one, then, it may be a surprise to some that I not only hadn't played any Brigandine games prior to Abyss, I hadn't even heard of the series previously. Now though, the chance has come for that to change, and given everything I have seen about the game and experienced with its demo, I'm ready to dive into this new entry and see if this may be a hidden gem of a series that I can explore more in the future. Brigandine as a series has been around since 1998, and Brigandine Abyss is going to be the third mainline game of the series. It will also feature the third developer of the series, as each game has been developed by a new studio. Brigandine Abyss is developed by AdGlobe, the studio behind the Ender Metroidvania games and the strategy game Redemption Reapers, so they have a decent track record. The game is published by HappyNet Games, who also published the second game, Brigandine: The Legend of Runetercia, as well as by NIS America, presumably for the localization. Abyss is going a different direction, specifically in its art style from previous Brigandine games, as they brought in designers from the Suikoden and Fire Emblem series. I can clearly see both influences, but otherwise this entry is supposed to serve as a continuation and expansion of the Brigandine formula. For those interested, there is a demo available for all platforms now that allows you to play a couple missions with two of the story factions with save data that transfers over to the full release. Brigandine Abyss releases for PC, Switch 2, PS5, and Xbox Series on August 26, 2026. In Brigandine Abyss, there are two modes you can play. Story mode allows you to take control of one of 6 factions, each with their own storyline, cutscenes, and the like. Mission mode expands your options to 24 factions to pick from, but you don't have the storyline, so it's just the general strategy of taking over other factions and becoming the most powerful nation on the continent. Due to this, I expect the game to be huge when it comes to hour count to beat all of the story mode routes, let alone doing mission mode. But what is the overarching story for Brigandine Abyss? The old king of the biggest nation of the continent of Meltati has died, and in his place is a new ruler whose ambitions stretch far beyond the original borders. You take control of one of 6 factions seeking to fight back against this rising empire. Each faction has their own goal in mind and motivation for taking the fight to the empire. Their motivations may clash and differ, and your path will depend on what you choose at the beginning. Plan your strategy and develop your holdings, and you may be able to realize your goals. It is possible that the story may surprise me, especially since there are multiple chances to do so across the factions, but for me it is the gameplay that has me more interested than the story. There are a lot of characters across all the factions, because even beyond the 6 story factions, the remaining 18 of the overall 24 factions still exist in the world as you are fighting. So there are times when you will be fighting against named characters from other factions that you may eventually take control of in mission mode or story mode. The massive roster of characters therefore gives a good chance that someone may turn out to be of interest among all those characters, but it also could serve to stuff the narrative and make it difficult for characters to stand out, especially if it's not there around. You are able to bring some of the soldiers for factions that you fought into the fold as you grow and expand your empire, but I haven't seen how that really works in practice because in the demo we stopped right after being able to do that. Hard to say exactly how it will play out, especially for a series that I've never played before, but as I said before, the story isn't what caught my attention. For the gameplay, Brigandine Abyss has a blend of gameplay that includes the strategic battles that I got a chance to explore in the demo, and a greater countrywide view that reminds me of a stripped-down version of a grand strategy game. I like both strategy battles and grand strategy, which is why I think this could be right up my alley. I'll start though with the battles. Battles are fought on a hexagonal grid, with your army being made up of leader units, who are your main story important characters, along with each leader unit having some associated units that are under their command. Your enemies also have the exact same structure, and your goal can either be to take out all your enemies, or you can focus on the enemy leaders. Once a leader falls, they take any remaining monster units with them. This does also apply to your own ones, so make sure your leaders are protected. From the missions I played so far, there is some variety in mission objectives. An early one I played was an escape mission, and when I tried to fight back, I got decimated instead, so they actually meant escape in that instance. Then I played a more standard defeat everyone mission that went smoothly. That gives me a sense that the game is capable of doing multiple different mission types without making just killing everything on the map the optimal strategy, because it's not easy to do. Now, the other element to strategy that goes back to the leader unit versus mook ones is that you can target the monsters under the character command to gain more experience during combat, but as soon as you take out the leader, those other opportunities disappear. You also can target the leaders if you're finding that there's just too many units in the area, so you can easily take things out and reduce the number you're facing. The leader leading monsters also gives rise to some unique powers that you need to balance when picking out the teams. I like how each of the monsters or the other units under your command have distinct roles that help make up for some of the areas the leaders don't have, such as healing or flying units, and that lets the leaders have even more distinct roles, as I saw little to no overlap in skills between the various leaders in the same faction. You can even rally some of the units to your leader to give certain boosts, which adds another dimension to battle. You want your leader to have a little more movement and flexibility, then you're going to rally with one of the mounted units. The battlefields with the significant terrain features in the hexagonal grid also make for a battle experience that varies from what I'm typically used to in the strategy RPG genre, but in a good way. Obviously, I've only had a brief glimpse, and I don't know how this will develop as you get more advanced and further into the game, but between the unit and the map variety and how you build up your squads, I've enjoyed what I've seen and played so far, and I'm excited to see how the system realizes its potential. The overall nationwide organization of the strategy, though, is still somewhat of a mystery. In the demo, there is barely any time to engage with it, and it seems like one of those features that the effects of your decisions are not immediately felt. You go through an organizational phase where you are upgrading, reorganizing, all those things, then an attack phase where you're targeting a group on a spot on the map, and then the invasion phase where you actually engage in battle. It is also heavily implied that you will be defending your own territory from invasions at times, which is exactly the kind of back and forth grand strategy I like to see and haven't seen very much of in the strategy RPG genre. It's one of the few points that was noticeably absent from another game with an overall continent-wide back and forth of control in Unicorn Overlord. The organization phase definitely seems to be the meatiest part of the overall strategy. I saw chances to go on quests to gather resources, upgrade domains you controlled, reorganize units, recruit new monsters, and more. Each time I went through the demo, I felt more and more confident in what I was doing and enjoyed the experience each time. Now, one of the things that I have seen prior fans of the Brigandine series critique Abyss about is the presentation, specifically with the art style. Now, I like how colorful and distinctive the cast is, but looking back at previous Brigandine games, I can see where they're coming from. The overall design of the world and characters in the older games gives off the feeling of paintings, both in its landscapes and character designs, that make the world feel ancient. It is an art style that helped it stand out at the time and definitely would have done so today as well. I understand why they went the direction they did in making the characters much more colorful and reminiscent of today's games, but I also sympathize with those older fans who feel the series lost some of its identity by embracing current trends instead of sticking with what was working previously. The cutscenes are also limited, likely by budget, and having to make 6 paths worth of them. They're goofy, but should be fine for telling the bigger story moments. The terrain in the battles, I think, does benefit from the new art style because it feels like we're actually fighting in the area, and there's plenty of variety not just in the terrain heights, but in how it is lit and the water changing from map to map. The music has been fine from what I've heard so far. I have faith in composer Rei Kondo though, given his past work. The voice acting is all in Japanese, there is no English dub, but it seems fine enough. I'm not going to be spending as much time listening to it because obviously I don't understand most of it. The last point I will talk about regards the performance of the demo and some UI and UX stuff. The UI does seem to get a little much at times with the significant wealth of information needed to be presented in both the organizational side of gameplay as well as in battle. I was able to parse through it, but I think this is likely not going to be a very beginner-friendly strategy RPG. On the UX side of things, this is specific to PC, but the hexagons are very difficult to navigate if you are doing a keyboard and mouse setup. When I'm using the WASD keys to navigate to where I want my unit to move, sometimes it will skip over the tile I'm looking for, and I have to use the mouse to manually click onto that tile. I don't know if this is the same on consoles when you're using the joystick, but it was annoying to deal with. The game does have some useful quality of life features, including speeding up battle and being able to hit a key to send you to the next character you want to move, but actually moving them is more of a pain than my experience in similar strategy games. The performance of the demo though was fine. I had no issues running it, and I hope that translates to the main release as well. The presentation is not everyone's cup of tea, but it works enough for me to be okay. Brigandine Abyss has me interested in this series, but firstly with Abyss due to its world-spanning strategy design, hexagonal combat with leaders and monsters that will have a very different feel from the strategy RPGs I'm used to, and a colorful world with hopefully fun characters. If you are like me and looking for a nice strategy game to tide you over until Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave comes out next month, then I think Brigandine Abyss will be an excellent choice. It seems to have significant replayability value too if you get sucked in, and the same goes for the rest of the series. I'm looking forward to seeing all of it in action and the depth of the strategy as I fight to prevent the Empire from rising. What do you think of Brigandine Abyss? Were you like me and had never heard of this series before now, or are you perhaps a longtime fan? Let me know in the comments, and please leave this video a like to support me and the channel. Subscribe if you have not already, as we've got the busiest time of the gaming year coming up with plenty of exciting new releases, at least for me, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Have a great day, and happy gaming!